thanks so much for joining us on the Road Less Traveled. Like I just mentioned to you, I think you're one of our favorite guests for most things that we have, for many reasons. I think you represent the young entrepreneur, a world that we are inhabiting and trying to inspire more young people to become entrepreneurs. I think what you're doing with Meesho is front and center to game itself, and your story itself on its own is fascinating. So thank you so much for indulging us as always and being on this conversation with me.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the kind words, Sandhya. Pleasure to be here.
I want to start at the beginning. Vidit, honestly, I wanted to do some research, but I said, no, let me leave it for this conversation. How did it start? Not everybody in India wants to be an entrepreneur, right? Inherently, most Indians want the safety net of a job. How did it start for you? What was that point you said, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so my journey, that was quite interesting because I come from a lower middle class family in Delhi. My dad used to work with Delhi government. My mom was a homemaker. And when I was growing up, I never imagined starting a company. My dad used to always tell me, hey, when you get when you go to college, you should prepare for ICE. And I used to think that that's what I will do. And when I went to college, I think going to IIT was the time when I was exposed to so many things. You go to this place and you see your alumni have started such legendary companies in India, globally, have risen to the top positions out there in some of these companies. And that starts to feed into your aspirations that you just were never exposed to. Like when I was growing up in my school, I was the first person who ever went to an IIT. Like there was no one before. So I had just no example or lead to follow. But I went there and I saw Sachin and Vinny Bansal started Flipkart. You have other founders starting Zomato and lots of other large companies in India and technology. And then you start to think about it. If these guys can do it, then so can I, because I'm also studying in the same place. I'm in the same hostel, have a similar dorm room. I'm studying the same thing. If these guys can do such things, why can't I? So even though just right after college, I did not start up. I joined ITC because it was one of the good companies at campus. Also, I thought that, hey, I want to learn something in a leadership role. And it was one of the few companies that gives you a large managerial mandate right after college. So I joined ITC. At that time, my parents didn't even expect that I would start up. And a few years forward, I realized that, hey, all these young guys essentially starting up companies, it's very, very easy to start a tech company now. You can just code something, build some product out, you show it to public, and you don't have I don't need to have crores of rupees to set up some investment or do some capex, right? So that was just the thing, and I got in touch with my my friend from college, Sanjeev, who's now co-founder at Meesho, and we got together and we said, hey, we have few ideas, why don't we try them out? And this may we are young, both of us were 24 years old. We could try something, we could fail at it and just go back to our job and everything would be exactly the same. One interesting thing that happened when I decided to kind of leave my job, and by the way, the same thing happened even with Sanjeev, is my dad did not speak to me for about a month. My dad said, hey, you're a Brahmin. Brahmins traditionally have not started companies. That's not in your blood. Baniyas, because I come from Delhi, Baniyas and Marwaris are the guys who end up starting companies. They become successful. So I have zero belief that you'll be able to build a successful company. And if you leave your job, you have you may not get a job again. And if you do this, I will not speak to you. And it was a tough time for me because my mom and dad, both of them were against this decision. But I just felt, hey, this is one dream I have. If I don't try it, I'll just regret it all my life. I said, okay, I will go forward with this. 1 month forward, my parents just gave in and said, okay, fine, do whatever you want to. But I don't think that relationship was fine for quite some time until they started to see that things are working out. So, and that's what happens. If someone from middle class family ends up starting something, a lot of people just don't believe because there are not enough stories of people like them starting up something and taking it big. I think now is when this has started to happen in the ecosystem.
And yet it was brave, right? Vidit, you're young, you have an education behind you, your family isn't entirely supportive, you have an idea that it's cool, you've seen success, but it's a brave choice, right? At that point. And if I remember right, your first entrepreneurial venture was a failure.
Yeah, true. And you can call it brave. You can even call it naive because you're 24 years old. And as I said, like when we decided to start up together, we said, let's just give each other 2 years together. We are essentially going on an exploration. If we find something interesting, it's great. If we don't, we just go back to our jobs, and like getting a job again at 26 is not going to be that hard. And we don't have any responsibilities. We are not married. We don't have to kind of pay fees for someone else. Something there's just never a better time to kind of do this. And that's what we thought. Like, to be very frank, we didn't think at that time that we were brave. We just thought that we're naive. And somehow it just worked. And as you said, the first thing that we started with, by the way, like the first two things did not work out. Like we pivoted twice before we landed into what we are doing today in Meesho. And but the ethos have been same. Like when we started off, we started with one single thing. Like we went around meeting a lot of people when we were researching on what we were building. And we said, this is 2015. Most small businesses in India, like almost all of them are still purely offline. No one has gone online. And you have Amazon, Flipkart, like organizing all this branded commerce, but none of the offline, long tail offline guys have gone online. And we are definitely sure this will happen at some point in the future. And if we can enable that to happen a little bit faster, I'm sure there'll be large opportunities. So we just went around and said, okay, we will enable small businesses to go online. And we started with one model to kind of solve that, like one solution to tackle one problem, didn't work. We moved to another solution to tackle the same problem, didn't work. Then we eventually landed on what we are doing, essentially helping people start their shops on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, where people spend time. And we are serving an audience that otherwise could not have started a shop before. So yeah, I'm saying it definitely took perseverance. It took about 1.5 years before we landed on something like this, but it was totally worth it.
I still want to stay with that time before it really turned into this cool company that, I really respect. I want to stay with that time when your early forays wasn't successful. What happens to young entrepreneurs? What happens to your dream at that point? Is it still you being naive? You're being persistent? Are there days when you think, what did I get myself into? What are you experiencing at that point, Vidit?
So it was definitely a very tough time emotionally, because some days I will get up and I will feel that I'm just gonna, like me and Sanjay are gonna change the world the way commerce happens in India. And the other day we'll get up and we'll think, hey, nothing's gonna work out and we'll have to go back and do something else. So it was very tough emotionally, because you have these small wins and losses almost every day. Like either you get few customers on a daily basis, the next day someone says your product is horrible, doesn't help me, etc. And at that time, basically, you have no validation out there. So it was definitely a big roller coaster in terms of emotions for both of us. And I think, and that's why I feel, if it was just me starting up alone, I would have definitely given up like way sooner than it took us to kind of figure out what we are doing today. It's just both of us were together. We had been with, like, we had known each other for a very long time. We have been friends for a very long time. And days when we feel like bad, hey, nothing is working out. We met some angel investors. They said this idea is stupid. We met some VCs. They said this idea is stupid. No one is coming to our app. No one is coming to a product, right? Like you always have these things happening, but we'll just sit together and say, okay, hey, that's what we decided. We decided that we will stick to this for the next 2 years. We will keep at it. We'll keep trying. We'll keep experimenting until we land onto something. And just because we kept feeding onto each other's energy, we could sustain what we were doing. I'm sure it would have been very hard. I don't think you can go through this journey all alone. It's just extremely difficult.
Absolutely, right. And also sometimes I used to be with United Seed Fund before. And one of the things that we definitely looked at when we invested was, are there more than one founders? Because you need that support. You need complementing skills and expertise. But did you have mentors at that point, Vidit, who saw you through your pivots? Or was this something that you figured out trial and error?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a journey where we had support from many people. Like my then girlfriend, now my wife, was a big piece of it. Every time I'll come back and I'll feel so bad, and she'll tell me everything is fine. My friends, a lot of them were also entrepreneurs in Bangalore, and we'll meet and then we'll share how tough stories are. And then you know that, hey, you're not the only person who's going through this tough phase. It really helps because you can keep sharing stories with us. I still remember, apart from friends, even a lot of our college alumni that we got in touch with who were running all these big companies in India, they also helped us. They said, hey, we went through the same period in the beginning. And when you start to see kind of these stories, you realize that everyone goes through it. You're not alone into something like this. And even that's how, like when we kept meeting these guys who were sort of mentors, college alumni, they also did our angel round, giving us some money. Hey, take some money so that you have another year to kind of do whatever experiments you want. And if we had not got support of some of these guys, it would have been a much, much harder journey.
What are early lessons that you still keep with you, saying, hey, I learned this, I'm not going to let that go? Some of those early lessons. Like I just spoke with Shraddha the other day, and one of the things she was saying is how important for her, and she was talking to an audience of young entrepreneurs, is to plan your cash reserves, right? She was saying a lot of times you think you can raise funds in 6 months, a year. She said seldom does that happen. You have to be more realistic when, if you have the opportunity. Do you have some of those early lessons that you feel like you'll always keep with you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, like to me, I realized, I think you have many moments in your journey when you just feel like giving up, right? And giving up could happen because of multiple scenarios. You could be running out of money, or some surprise has come in your business where you don't know where to go to. Like lots of lows come into your journey. And I just realized that if you are together with someone and both of you are very, very clear of where you want to go to, and then you've like told yourself that, hey, I am going to be perseverant, I am not going to give up, it just helps a lot. Because I have seen, like I realized a lot of my friends and peers who are running companies, they just gave up sooner than us. That's the only difference. I would say there's nothing else. Some of them
It's
were much, much
persistence.
smarter people than us.
It's persistence and perseverance.
Yeah, and you have to be there, and that's why I said you can't do it alone. You need a great co-founder that you can trust with. I have also seen, like for example, people who became founders together by meeting at some event. They just did not know each other for a very long time, and as soon as things became bad, one guy was applying for a job, this guy left, this other person went into some kind of depression. There was no one to support this person, right? So I'm saying, just giving up, if you give up sooner, you get out of the game, you cannot win. And the only way you stay in the game, even when you go through some of these very, very lows which hurt you a lot, is by having a great partner, by having a great support network from your family, friends, mentors. And if you are entering into this journey without this support, it is impossible to not give up soon, right? So I just feel if you have this, you just have a much longer time to play this game better and to come out as a winner if possible, right?
Uh, no, and thanks for that. I think the importance of persistence and persevering is what is the real game changer. I feel like we've spent some time on the challenges. I want to move a little forward now. Vidit and his partner have had a couple pivots, and then you start seeing something take shape. I want you to talk to me about that time when you started to finally see this business you're building, those positive stories of when you said, wow, I'm on a good thing now. This is what I want to take forward. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, definitely. And the great thing about something working out is, especially if you've had two big failures trying to make a product that hasn't worked for quite some time, when you see something working, it really stands out. You just know these are very different stories. People come back and tell you that, hey, you really make a change in my life. And if you don't exist, I will feel extremely bad. So you just really know when it is working. And I think we really felt it. And I'll kind of give you some stories around it. We had this product out, And I met a lot of our users who were extremely active on our product. And I went to kind of meet them in their houses so that we understand them better. And I met this lady in Whitefield, and she told me like her story for the last 10 years. And it was touching. She was saying that, hey, for the last 10 years, I had been trying to start my home-based business. I had been trying to start my own boutique out of the house. And I go to my husband every year and he says, I don't have money, come back to me next year. And she said, it just breaks my confidence because I keep doing this every year, every year, every year, and I have nothing. I had a dream of starting this. I'm a homemaker right now. I don't feel confident. I don't have enough self-esteem. And then she figured out that, hey, leveraging a product, she can now start a business online for the first time. She can start her own boutique on WhatsApp, and how her life changed. And then we kept hearing the same stories everywhere. You go to someone, she will talk about all the hardships she was going through. And now because of our product, her identity has changed. Like people in the community earlier used to call someone as someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's daughter. And now people refer to her as owner of a particular business because people buy products from her, right? And that has just changed, not just financial independence that she has, but also like self-esteem, confidence, a positive identity in that community, which means a lot to her. And then you start to hear these stories, you really know that things are working. Like we just need to go like double down on what we are doing and just make it better and make it available to more people in the country, because that is just a very, very big problem.
Oh, what are the sacrifices you've had to make, or do you not look at them as sacrifices personally in this journey? What are things that a young man today who may not have the pressure of an entrepreneurial venture does, but what Vidit is on a track to do, what have you had to give up?
I think there will definitely be a lot, right? Like the first thing that you have to give up is on good terms with your parents. Like in my case, if you come from my family background, and as I said, it took us 1.5 years for things to start working. Just imagine the relationship I had with my parents for those 1.5 years, because every time I meet them or I talk to them, I can see that I told you so face, right? It was just, hey, we knew this is not going to work out. You've been slogging, doing this and that, working 7 days a week, all night, all day. There's a good chance soon you may be asking us for money again, even when you started to work, right? And especially in a family, that's not considered good. Like people look down upon you. So I'm saying that is one big thing, right? You just are not on good terms with your family, which is very, very important. And you are going through all these hardships in parallel. You face this on a daily basis when you speak to your parents. Second thing is all your friends who are now earning, traveling, partying, doing a lot of things that you have decided not to do because you have a very different focus. So I don't think anyone can ever achieve something or achieve their dream without sacrifices. I don't think it's possible, right? And just wishing too much. But the thing is, you just don't feel that pain that much if you're doing something that you really like, right? I remember when we used to have small wins, we tried to build a product to solve X, and we really saw stories where we saw that X is happening. It was just worth everything that we had done there. Just that happiness is worth more all the sacrifices that you do. So unless you are doing something where this is definitely worth it, I don't think you will feel good. You just keep feeling FOMO. You keep feeling that, hey, people are having much more fun than me, or my parents are not happy with me, or maybe I should just go back to doing what I was doing earlier.
And essentially what you're saying is when you find your purpose, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
With it having seen a certain amount of success, I don't like using the word success. It has it has a full stop. But just say you've moved on to a phase of failure and turning around and having a vision beyond 2 years and a grander plan, right? Looking back, what are a couple of things that you did in the early days that you know not to do now? If you could go back, you won't do.
I generally do not like this question because, to be very frank, if I did not do those things, I would not have that learning today.
I want to quickly step in, and I understand failure is important to make to lead you to success. So I'm not talking so much about failure, but I'm talking about little skills or little you know things that you learned along the way that you said, hey, today if I was guiding someone who's starting out, I'll tell them, look out for this, more from that perspective.
Yeah, like some learnings that I can go back and say, okay, hey, one thing is, like, for example, I talked about we struggled over 7-8 months. Then we reached out to a lot of help from a college alumni, and we were super surprised that they're very, very okay to help us. And I just realized, why didn't we do it sooner? So I would say, if you can ask for help from someone, you should do it right away. You should not think about it. You should not do it later. We used to keep thinking, hey, we'll do it at some point in time. We'll figure out things on our own. So I would definitely say one thing that if I had done earlier would have helped me is asking for help from people around me, like sooner, would have definitely made this journey a bit easier. That is definitely one. Second thing that we realized, and that I think I would say that we learned over time, is in the beginning, again, if you are first-time entrepreneurs, you tend to get influenced a lot. Like when we started off, we said, hey, we're going to help small businesses. Suddenly all these VC firms start to come out to you and they start telling you, this is what we expect for you to raise a particular round. And we say, hey, at some point in time, we have to do it. And I remember for 3-4 months, we were just building stuff, not what our users were telling us, but what these guys were telling us. And then we realized we keep building them and nothing changes. When you go back to them, and they'll say, hey, build something else because that's what they feel. So looking at these guys, at investors or VCs, as to how should you solve the problem is the worst thing to do. It just kills your time, kills your confidence, kills your self-esteem. If we had started to look at our user much, much earlier, we would have done a better job. But that is a very strong learning from me. Like after that, I've just never taken any suggestion or idea from a VC because I know that I know about a particular business much, much more than any VC out there who's not spending that much time with the user base. But that is another learning that we had.
I feel that's such a valuable lesson, Vidit. I feel like entrepreneurs just get into the VC trap. They don't understand that you know your business better than anybody else, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think some VCs definitely understand that they don't know and they don't try to be prescriptive. But some people just feel that, hey, if I can give you gyan, why shouldn't I? And especially if you're a very young guy, you just tend to see, hey, this makes sense, we should do it. And you keep following that. And I have given this advice to a lot of very young first-time entrepreneurs after that. And saying, hey, someone is telling you, don't think about it. Go to a user, talk to them, what do they need, and then figure out the answer. But that's definitely one bit of advice that every first-time entrepreneur should know about it.
So thanks for that, Vidit. I cannot agree more with that. Vidit, do you have an entrepreneur icon, someone you think, hey, you really look up to, and you like their journey, you like their story? Is there someone that you look up to?
I think there's not a single person, but I pick bits from a lot of people, right? Passion about product from like someone like Steve Jobs, right? Customer centricity from a Jeff Bezos, or like just the boundaryless thinking from an Elon Musk. And the same thing goes with a lot of entrepreneurs, even in India. So I don't think I have a single person, but I've started to realize that, hey, there are some people who have been excellent in particular things, and I tend to kind of learn a lot from there. And that it definitely helps me, inspires me to kind of do it. I don't think there's one single person that I emulate so much that, okay, hey, this is what I want to be, or this is the kind of entrepreneur I want to be. But I definitely pick a lot of these things from a lot of people who have like built big companies or have created impact at a like extremely large scale.
What what games focused on, and very aligned in a way to what Meesho is focused on. What, especially in the context of COVID, Vidit, do you think we are going to be an entrepreneurial country, or is that not even an important question to ask?
I think it's a very important question, and I'll tell you why. And we see a lot of data, and I can kind of give you some of that too. In India, if you look at it, most people traditionally have been self-employed, be it larger, small businesses. Like, I think India has some 50, 70 million businesses, registered, non-registered, higher than any country that you know globally. Um, Even among developing markets, we have a larger number, which if just by that number, you tend to know that, hey, India has much more entrepreneurs than other places. I also feel it's much, much tougher to be an entrepreneur here. The kind of problems as an entrepreneur you face, which is access to capital, access to a lot of other resources that you want, like help from the system out there, law and order, etc., is a bit harder, which makes people, which definitely acts as friction. But even then, people have been. And we have seen the same thing with a product. Like, to be very frank, what we've built doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And the same number of people coming online and starting something of their own, the same thing you haven't seen before. And it just tells you the kind of entrepreneurial aspiration that Indians have. Be it, like in our case, we see homemakers doing it, we see students doing it, we see a lot of like people in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, they have an aspiration starting their own business, and then they associate dreams with it. They say, okay, eventually I'll make it this big so that I can gift it to someone in my family or to my son, do this, do that. And they work all their lives towards it. During COVID, we have seen like the organic traffic on our product has been crazy high. If you go on Google Trends and see starting shop online, starting a business online, all these things have just skyrocketed. Just if you just say starting a business, etc., has been skyrocketing. Why? Because a lot of people lost jobs. A lot of people have like their incomes have been affected. The economic impact of COVID is not unknown, and you see that people are not giving up. People are saying, okay, hey, these are tough times, and let me kind of start my business, the dream that I had, sooner than later. I will do it online. I'll figure out newer skills that are required for it, and I will get there. And we see that in our data, like the organic traffic on a product now is like some 4-5x of pre-COVID, which means more like 5x number of people are looking to start a business for the first time online right now, because the times have become tougher. So because the time, and it talks about the anti-fragility of the whole system. Things like that happening did not demotivate people, just motivate them to do better and to do much, much, much more.
And yet we need to make more role models of them, right? We need your small entrepreneur to be as cool as a Jeff Bezos, not at that scale, but doing really cool, interesting things at a local level. And it'll be great if we reach that point where we create an ecosystem that supports their growth. So I really, for me, one of the reasons I'm talking to you, Vidit, is I feel we need more role models like you. That people look at you and say, they're not talking about Nara. I mean, I'm sure you'll grow to be as big as that. But what you've done is cool, interesting, local, successful, and to make role models of you. Where do you see Vidit Aatrey in 5 years?
It's very hard for me to tell you where will I be. I don't think I think that much about where will I be 5 years from now.
Where would you like to be?
And that's why I'm saying, for me, everything that I do and where I am is totally associated with where Meesho is. So I think about where will Meesho be in 5 years, and I think that's a good question. If I will think I'm reading it, someone else, I don't know. But what we want to be doing is we just want to kind of we want to fulfill dreams of more and more people. We want to encourage, motivate, enable more and more small businesses across the country. I don't even feel not just in India, but across the world, to come and fulfill their dreams of starting their businesses, growing their businesses, becoming successful and becoming independent. And we want to do it in all possible formats. To be very frank, we're not even at a day one today, because the kind of categories, the kind of TG we cover, if you look at the overall big picture, is extremely small. We've started to take some baby steps toward the other direction of enabling other kind of smaller businesses, other TGs, other geographies just now. So 5 years from now, where I want to be is we just want to be enabling 100x more people to either start, grow, and scale their small businesses. And that's what, and when those stories come out, positive stories where someone is able to scale a business, make income, like help their family, support their children, support their family, right? Those stories, like give us the kind of fuel that we need. That keeps us going every day. That makes us happy. That makes us content. That gives us the passion and inspiration to live another day and do more for the same audience. So that's what we think about what we want to do in 5 years from now. We just want to be enabling 100x more people to start and grow and scale their small businesses online.
And I will speak to you then again, Vidit, and it'll be a good conversation to have, where you can look back and say that you made it happen. But on a lighter note, given that you're sitting in front of what looks like the world's largest library, do you have a book that inspires you, a book that's your go-to book, or a couple of books that as an entrepreneur you've read and said, I've taken away a lot from this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of them, but like, for example, one thing that is definitely one of the top of the mind things for me, especially during COVID, when your entire large team is distributed, working from home, culture, keeping teams together, keeping teams motivated, aligned to the broader mission and vision we have. Like, one book that I really love is the book Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. That book on culture is the best book I've read. And why I say so is because it just inspired me to do a lot of things that we have seen work out really well in the company. In terms of, for example, some of the other books that I really like is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. It was definitely one of the most inspiring books for me. That, like, I read that book before I started up, and it was one of the books that inspired me to kind of start up. So that I would definitely say is one of the top books for me. Another book, if I have to give, is the biography that I read, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. And that book is, like, that story is again about perseverance, right? Like, that large company has been built through such an interesting journey where the founder just started with something and kept building it over time and achieved what it has achieved again. And as I said, perseverance to me is one of the core things for an entrepreneur to kind of go through that phase of discovery and exploration and land upon something which is extremely impactful. So yeah, I would say these 3 books are one of my top 3 suggestions.
Vidit, do you have time for a hobby? Is there a downtime with it? Do you get that break, or is your journey so hectic that you don't get to go off track and take some time for yourself? Do you have a hobby?
I do. Like, I don't think I can live without them. Like, 2 things. I love reading books. I spend a lot of time reading books. The other thing is I play and watch tennis. There's not a lot of tennis to be watched right now, so I play tennis almost every morning, and that keeps me that keeps me sane, especially during this time when we're stuck at home, not moving around. But yeah, like, lawn tennis and books, I would say.
Are you team Federer or team Nadal?
I'm team Nadal. As I said, I believe in hard work over talent, perseverance over anything else. So I'm definitely team Nadal.
Oh, great. And any Netflix time?
I don't watch much. Maybe like once in a couple of weeks. Maybe like sometimes I just watch on a Sunday with my wife, but consistently I don't watch much.
Thank you so much, Vidit. Like I said when we started, you're one of our favorite guests. I'm going to keep coming back to you every time I start a series, every time I have an event, because I love your story. Thank you for taking time. And I'm going to keep watching you, and we're going to keep having this conversation. And 5 years from now, we'll see where you are.
Thank you so much.
I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for inviting me.